So the last, or maybe the, I don't know, next little piece that I got is that if we would love, if that would happen, I mean, that doesn't happen for the demon to take off, okay? I mean, what's enough for the demon to take off is that we feel our fear. And then the fear gets less. And from that moment on, where the fear drops away, they're off. If our fear gets more, they stay. And it gets more until the moment where we realize and we feel, and then it gets less, and then they're off. They're gone. Why? Because it is such a risk for them that we might open our hearts to them. Because if that would happen, if we had that ability, if that would happen, that we somehow had empathy for them, just like with that ghost, it just happened. I just got these thoughts came to my mind, and then imagine this, imagine that, and then I had put myself into their place, and somehow it went tick, 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 and there was empathy in my heart. I could feel it. It's just a tad. It wasn't even that much. I mean, that's all relative, but I could feel it. It was subtle. And for demon, see, they don't love themselves at all. They don't know what love is. I mean, their hearts are so closed. As I said, they don't even, if there's still an opening and there's a little bit of light still coming through, they don't even see it. They don't see it. They don't feel it. And at least to the point where it tips. I always think everything goes in bandwidth and in gradually, you know, and then there are these thresholds. So, as I said, I don't know if it's completely closed, and from the point where the soul tips over, where it's a dying soul, and it actually dies in this direction, not up, not ascending, dying. That's not dying, that's ascending, but dying, that it falls down, it descends ever more, ever more. So from that point where it drops from being a soul to the point where it reunites completely with God, with the center of the sun, with the pure consciousness, with pure light. In that time span, in that period where that quantum is left and is running out, that would be the lifespan of the demon. At the point where the soul tips over, unless it gets fed. Okay? I'm not sure. Unless it gets fed. It's only that if it doesn't get fed, it starves. That's the thing. But even if it doesn't starve to death, it has a different. It has a lifespan, and I think starving to death would just make it die earlier. I guess. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so what happens is when we have more love to a certain degree to that demon, and that's not hard to do if their hearts are so closed that they're demons, that they can't descend anymore, no chance, you know. They're at the absolute tip of density. So they have their hearts more closed than any being. That is what makes them into a demon. So if we have empathy for them and our hearts open to a certain degree for them, and they would stick around, because from that moment what happens is our love, empathy, so our love for them, which they don't have any for themselves, they don't know what that is, but as we feel empathy, as we have a feeling for them that is like a kind feeling, that is like, wow, poor being, you know, or maybe like, wow, I really feel your pain and I want to help you dissolve it. And that would be, you know, come back home. And Anyways, with empathy, the heart opens and the suction happens. And they would be just sucked in. And at a certain point, they don't have the power. It's like a sucking in. It sucks them in. And so that's why they're so scared and they're so away, because they're so scared to get trapped in this vortex and get sucked in, even though that's their salvation. And they would just dissolve. They would just dissolve. And that's exactly what happens inside the body when there's fear inside the body, or when there's like a tightness inside the body, or even if there's an illness inside the body, like that I can feel or so, you know. So when I feel it and I am present with it, and I'm not against it, I'm like completely there with it. And it's the same thing that happens, is that it's like the death particles, the parts that feel like they're separate, they get sucked in, and then they realize again, they get sucked in through this, what is the heart here, the heart of that system, wherever that happens, they get sucked in. And every atom, every cell has this heart, has that at the center, is this light at the center. Every form has this light at the center. Every form has this light at the center, except every living form has a light at the center. Like, I don't think a chair has a light at the center. That's another species. I would say a chair is pure consciousness in form, like without having necessarily an identity of its own. It doesn't have a soul. A chair doesn't have a soul. Okay, but that's another story. I don't even know what that is. but that's why they're so scared. Like they're more afraid of. They're so scared of us opening our hearts to them, of us loving them, because they would get sucked in and annihilated. It's like that's their death. So that's what they're most afraid of. So yeah, there's no point in saying, well, so try to love your enemies, you know, you should really love those beings that do these terrible things, you know. There's no way we could, you know, there's no way we could make ourselves love what doesn't inspire love in us, you know. That's nothing you can force whatsoever, and you don't need to, because it's completely enough. It's completely enough when you feel yourself, and when you allow yourself, and when you realize that being one with yourself, when you are in your column, that's when your light shines bright, and that's when your heart is open to a good degree, and that's having compassion to them, and that's the same thing like love to them, you know. It's the same thing. And the deeper you can love yourself, obviously at some point you arrive at, you know, but it doesn't matter if you arrive at that point. If you arrive at the God spark in yourself, in your heart, doesn't matter if you love that deep. It's just you're then more frightened. That you're really scary to them, because they would, if you have the ability to love that deep, it's like you can suck them in a second, and it wouldn't even be like a mosquito. You wouldn't even notice it. It's like that, you know. So I don't think they would come close to beings that have that capability to love them. They would not. No. Okay.